Hey Latchkey kids and driving mutants, I'm Lady Shasha, Mistress of the Snark. Today we're going to get into Tokyo Gore Police as requested by TonyMan00TV. He requested it as a comment in one of my live streams and I didn't get a chance to take a screen capture of it. Tokyo Gore Police was made by Tokyo Shock Productions, the same company behind Frankenstein Girl vs. Vampire Girl. I have not seen this since it first came out in 2008, so I was kind of excited to rewatch it. 1 minute in and we get an exploding head. 2 thumbs up. The Tokyo Police Department has been privatized and now their helmets look like samurai helmets. They have to fight engineers, criminals that have remodeled their bodies to turn into ferocious, fiendish murderers. When they get wounded, their wounds become a dangerous weapon. They have a key-shaped tumor inside of them and the only way to destroy them is to destroy the key-shaped tumor. This story follows Ruka, a Tokyo police officer. She is traumatized from witnessing her father's murder as a teen. He was the person with the exploding head at the start of this movie. If Ruka looks familiar to you, it's because she played Asami in Audition. This movie is a trip. It's a collection of gore scenes intercut with these weird commercials and news reporting clips. At least I think this lady's a news reporter. There's a sequence with a madam. Side note, isn't it funny that even in Japan the pimps have pimp coats too? Anyway, the aftermath of her demise is so cool. She's all in pieces in a box, with her coat and shoes placed neatly beside her, and all her blood in bottles.
Now I call that showmanship.
They did a lot with lighting that made many scenes look like comic book panels. You can tell they used real deal gels for the lighting instead of an overlay in post. You see how the wall is lit with blue light, but the stairs are lit with a warm light? And in this close-up, the actor's face still looks like normal while the wall is still blue. In a lot of recent movies, they would have just put a blue overlay in post and made the whole thing look bad and cheap. This is pretty much a superhero movie with lots of blood and gore. Ruka is a superhero, complete with superhero landing. The gore is done almost entirely with practical effects. Some CGI is used for the gunfire though. The practical effects are still impressive. Look at this half of a severed head. Look at the detail. This is art. Be forewarned that this movie does become quite extreme. What kind of extreme do you mean? A half human, half chair peeing on a crowd extreme, being bitten off and shown in graphic gory detail. A woman's lower half turns into a crocodile and then bites a man's arm off. Lots and lots of blood splatter. It's kind of watery and you know how I, the blood Goldilocks, feel about that. I won't spoil what happened to the gentleman who got his piece bit off. He became an engineer and you'll just have to watch the movie to see the extremity of that. I didn't even describe the best scenes for the people who haven't seen it. I will say what my 2 favorite kills are. One I'll call acid milk, and the other I'll call champagne. If you know, then you know. Underneath all the blood and gore is a story about how the same trauma can affect 2 people 2 entirely different ways. Kind of like how Batman's trauma made him a hero, but the Joker's trauma made him a villain. Also at its core, this movie is about police brutality and corruption, much in the way RoboCop was. Both movies are about the privatization of the police force. Oh my god, it's so woke. Anyway, there's a character that I'll call Sword Girl, who is the perfect pairing of practical effects and CGI enhancement. This is a lot of gory fun. It's a little long and I think they could have stood to shave 15 to 20 minutes off the runtime and it would have made for a much tighter film. But I had fun rewatching this. This movie was everything that Frankenstein's army wanted to be. Yoshiro Nishimura was the special effects director and gore effects and creature design and editor and director, and he was a stand-in for Judge Reinhold. The end screen promises us more gore to come, and it did. This movie was followed by Vampire Girl vs. Frankenstein Girl, Mutant Girl Squad, Hell Driver, and the segment Z is for Zetsumetsu in the horror anthology film ABCs of Death was also directed by Nishimura as well. Thank you TonyMan00 TV for suggesting this movie. I now can say I have seen it. While this movie felt a bit long, I enjoyed the goriness and the WTF-ness of this movie. But at the time of this recording, Tokyo Gore Police was available fully on YouTube with English subtitles. Have you seen Tokyo Gore Police? What did you think of it? Let me know in the comments. Did you know that Blumhouse has produced 4 feature-length movies that they released exclusively to Amazon Prime? 4 different directors, 4 different stories, 4 different standalone features. I like this idea because it gives brand new directors an opportunity with a modest budget to see what they can do. Just go into these knowing that you are watching mystery suspense thrillers, not straight horror movies. I'm going to be deliberately vague in my critique because the strength of a mystery suspense thriller is the mystery, the twists, and the reveals. Let's talk about Black Box first. Black Box is about a father who has experienced a traumatic brain injury and is dealing with extreme memory loss. He goes to a doctor to try an experimental treatment and things don't go as planned. This was pretty much like a lost episode of Black Mirror. It was interesting, but not that great. As a matter of fact, I'm having a hard time reviewing it because it was so meh. Actually, I'm having a hard time recalling what happened in the movie because it was sort of forgettable. It's the type of movie that you play in the background while you're working on something else. I think it's because they tried to stretch the story out into a feature-length film when it really could have been told in 35 to 45 minutes. This is not a badly shot movie. It looks very good. The acting is good, and of course Phylicia Rashad is there doing what Phylicia Rashad does. And I'm really liking her in the second half of her career playing gotcha characters. Did you see her in A Fall from Grace? All in all, this movie was just okay. I'd be mad if I paid for it, but since I didn't pay for it, it's just, you know, all right. Man, that was a super short review. I wonder if I should just put all 4 of these into one review because these are going to be kind of short. But I'm going to be back in a moment to talk about The Lie. And we're back. Let's talk about The Lie. This tried so hard to be Hitchcockian, but it just missed the mark. The Lie is about a teenage girl who does something horrible and about the lengths that her parents will go to cover it up. Have you ever watched paint dry? Because I think it would be slightly more entertaining than this movie. If this burned any slower, it would be going backwards. The worst part is the whole family is unlikable. I was actually rooting for them to get caught. They were so aggravating, especially the daughter. And once again, just like the other movie, this story could have been told in 30 minutes. But again, not a bad looking movie. Obviously, Blumhouse gave them a couple dollars to work with. It's competently made as far as the lighting and cinematography. It does that color drain thing, which you guys know I do not like. But somebody must like it because they keep doing it. You can see the twist in this coming a mile away, so the payoff wasn't worth the wait, in my opinion. I actually don't really recommend this movie unless you want something to fall asleep to. And that was super short too, so I guess we might just move ahead. Might go and come back and talk about Nocturne. Or is it Nocturne? Nocturne? Nocturne. I say Nocturne. Let's get into Nocturne. This has like the simplest of premises. It's about a girl who wants to get into Juilliard by playing the piano, but her sister plays the piano better than her. And of course, her and her sister are the only 2 people that exist in her world, apparently. So she does something wicked to try to get the upper hand. And things don't turn out so well. I'm listening to this movie and wondering if the people who did the score knew what movie they were scoring. There were so many times during this movie where the score was just amping up and crescendoing and nothing was happening. Or I should say nothing terrifying was happening on the screen, but the music would indicate that something terrifying was supposed to be happening on the screen. This movie really wanted to be something, and the bones of a better movie are there. They just missed the mark, and this was teetering right on the edge of being good. I felt like this movie wanted to be Starry Eyes, The Neon Demon, The Perfection that was on Netflix, and those 2 movies are just above mediocre to just alright at best. They aren't horrible, but they aren't great. They're just middling, okay, and this doesn't even live up to being okay. Quiet as it's kept, they're all just trying to be Black Swan, in my opinion. Everybody can't be Black Swan. As a matter of fact, if you put those movies in a blender and took out everything interesting or edgy about them, you'd get this boring PG version. This stars Sydney Sweeney, and she does all right with what she's given, although she hasn't been given much. And at the time of the filming of this video, I actually found out that she was in another movie on Tubi, which is much, much better than this movie. It's called Along Came the Devil. Watch her in that movie. It's a much better movie than this movie. Like I said at the beginning of this video, this is on Amazon Prime for free, so watch it if you feel like watching it, but if you miss it, you're not really missing much. Let's move on to the next one. The last movie that premiered in the Welcome to the Blumhouse series is called Evil Eye. This movie is about a woman who's nearing 30 years old and she feels a lot of pressure from her mother to get married. She finally meets a guy, but he might not be the right one. I was interested in this one from the trailer because I really like that lead actress. I saw her in the Glow series, even though she wasn't given enough to do in that series. I always liked her as an actress. So when I saw her in a trailer, that immediately made me interested in seeing this. I'm really happy to see her take center stage. Out of these 4 movies, for me, this one was the least boring. Still a slow burn, but at least something is there to burn. I feel like I'm going to sound like a broken record, but again, this story could have been told in 45 minutes as well. I don't know why they just didn't find maybe 2 more stories and just make this an anthology series of 45-minute episodes, and then they all would have turned out much, much better. I really like the aesthetic of this movie. And when I say aesthetic, I mean the look and feel of this movie. The way it's filmed kind of reminded me of some of the ways that Parasite was filmed. Or it could have just been the decor of that house. Like, look at these 2 kitchens. They look very similar. I also like the touches in the story that highlight Indian culture. And more specifically, if I'm not mistaken, South Indian culture. Those touches make the characters feel more real for me. Like I said, out of the 4, I like this one the best. I don't think that you will be disappointed in it unless you're not into thriller movies. Once again, like I said, these are not straight horror movies. These are mystery suspense thrillers, which is a different genre. So to close this out, if I were to rank these from worst to best, worst would be The Lie. The next worst would be Nocturne, then Black Box, and then the best would be Evil Eye. If you've seen all 4, let me know what your worst to best list is. I'm really interested to see because people like different things. I mean, that's why I have the sign off that I have. Let me know what you thought of these movies if you got a chance to see them. Are you interested in seeing them? And how do you feel about mystery, suspense thrillers in general? Or are you just a straight horror fan? Let's talk about it in the comments. Now let's get into HELLFEST. And if you haven't guessed, today's look was inspired by the character of Brooke, played by Rain Edwards. I thought this was just a really cute look for her. I actually could have gotten ears that look a little bit more similar to the ones that she had on in the movie, but I felt that these looked better on me because I have a rounder face, so I needed wider set ears. This movie opens up with a couple girls going through a scare house. They're characters that we don't get to know because something bad happens to them immediately, so it's just kind of a prologue to let you know what happened in previous years. Then we get introduced to a new group of friends that are going to go to HELLFEST. And for the most part, they're annoying. The only one that was semi-interesting personality-wise was the girl with the spiky hair that had on, I think she had on fishnets and like a little skirt or something, but she had the most personality out of everyone in the movie. The guys were pretty much interchangeable. It was just like dude bro 1, dude bro 2, and dude bro 3. There were scenes when they were walking through the HELLFEST that really reminded me of Universal Horror Nights here at Universal Studios in Orlando. It really is kind of like that. You're walking through the park and people that are in really, like, I would say film grade makeup come up to you and try to scare you. And it's so funny because I noticed that they tend to kind of run up on 2 groups of people the most. And I think it's because they get a bigger reaction. It's not that these 2 groups of people are any more scary than other groups of people, but they just react more vibrantly. And that's the most tough looking, you know, like thugged out dudes that are, you know, at the park in their Timbs. They react so funny. They either square up or they just run away when the scare actors run up in their face. And Puerto Rican women, they just, I don't want to call it overreaction because it's not really overreacting because your reaction is what your reaction is. I don't consider it one better or worse than the other. It's just funnier to watch a bigger reaction. I can't really tell how old these characters are supposed to be. I can't tell whether they're supposed to be high school age or whether they're supposed to be college age. A lot of stuff they were doing was really stereotypical, but not current day stereotypical, more like 80s movie stereotypical, so that was a little odd. As they were going through the park, they started to get really annoying to me because they were seriously overreacting to everything. When I mean overacting, I don't mean to the scares. I mean just being overly excited about every little thing, and I feel like maybe I'm just jaded and old, but I feel like I haven't been that excited about going to a scare house since middle school. I mean, it really isn't that exciting. It's fun, yeah, but I'm not jumping up and down, and I don't know. Their reaction, it didn't even seem like that of an older teenager. It seemed more like a younger teenager, like a 13, 14-year-old. I could see that. I don't know. Maybe they're supposed to be in high school. They didn't look like high school students, but maybe they were supposed to be in high school. If you saw the movie, did you happen to see two characters they walked by that looked a little bit like the singing ladies from the Mothra movies? I don't know if they were supposed to be paying homage to the two singing ladies from the Mothra movies, but that's what they reminded me of. There is some decent gore in this movie. The camera cuts away a little too quickly from the first kill for us to really fully appreciate that, but it still was executed well. I think my favorite kill was the second one with the needle. It really reminded me of that scene with the lady in the window in Zombie, sometimes known as Zombie 2, because of the way that they did the practical effects was very, very similar. And I really enjoyed that. Something else I noticed, where were all the other patrons? It seemed like the people in the park were only the actors in the scare houses and these, 5 or 6 friends. The design of the different scare houses was pretty cool. I thought they looked pretty fun. The one where they were riding in that little, I don't know if it's supposed to be, well, it's kind of like a little train type of thing, reminded me of the, I don't know if that's late 70s or early 80s, but there was a movie called Funhouse, and it kind of reminded me of that. Then Tony Todd shows up dressed as Baron Samedi, full of charisma as he usually is. It just occurred to me who the girl with the spiky hair reminded me of. At first, I thought she was the same actress that played teenage Megasonic Warhead in Deadpool, because she looks really similar, but when I looked her up, the name wasn't the same. But like I said, she was pretty charismatic herself. Overall, this is a pretty fun movie, way better than Bloodfest. So if you had to choose between Bloodfest and HELLFEST, go with HELLFEST, because I feel like it was a much better movie. There was a few points where it dragged just a little bit. Maybe they could have shaved 10-15 minutes off. It isn't exactly something that needs to be seen on the big screen, though. I would say it's about worth a rental on Amazon or just wait for it on Netflix, something like that. I am glad that this is an actual new slasher movie because that's one of my favorite genres or my favorite subgenres of horror. And it's so disheartening when they try to make new slasher movies and completely miss the mark. This one actually got a lot right. And I loved the ending. It catches you a little bit off guard, but it leaves it open for sequels in a way that I really enjoyed. I'm not going to give it away, obviously, but I actually like the way this ended. If I entertained you, made you smile, or helped you pass the time, please consider supporting this channel so that I can do that more. Horror channels often get suppressed and demonetized, but you can help in 3 ways: by pledging a monthly contribution on Patreon, sending a one-time tip using your preferred financial app, or you could help for free by liking and commenting for the algorithm, and most importantly, sharing this video on your social media. Thank you so much. Doesn't it just feel like this movie popped up out of nowhere? It was like the trailer just dropped a week or 2 before the movie. Maybe it's just me. This was produced by Blumhouse and I believe distributed by Sony. I wonder if this will be as popular with teenagers as the original The Craft was with 90s teens. Especially since, from what I hear, there's a thriving witch community on TikTok. This movie starts out with our main character and her mother driving to their new home. I feel personally attacked by the portrayal of the Gen X mother getting hype over this Alanis Morissette song. First of all, the song played for a good while before she noticed what song it was. If you really love a song, you know it 2 seconds in. Secondly, Hand in My Pocket was not the one. You ought to know what's a song to get hyped to. And Ironic had the most beautiful vocals, even if she didn't quite get the definition of ironic correct. I guess, isn't it coincidental? It's a little bit harder to sing. Anyway, Hand in My Pocket was the third or fourth most popular song by Alanis Morissette at the time. In Gen X rant. That was my first clue that this was written and directed by a millennial. They think they know us. So anyway, our main character, Lily, and her mother are moving in with her mother's either boyfriend or husband. It's not specified, and his 3 sons. I was so shocked when they were introducing the sons to her. How do you move in with a guy and your kids have never even met? That's not cool. Lily goes to her new school and something very embarrassing happens that if you've seen the trailer, you know what it is. And it's something that many a teenage girl has gone through, although most of us don't hemorrhage. That's how she meets the coven of witches who befriend her and help her. One scene that was very irksome was when her mother's boyfriend or stepdad, like I said, they never say whether they're married or not, was admonishing her for getting in trouble at school for defending herself against a verbal sexual assault. She just kind of stood there and took that, and her mom did too. In my mind, I was thinking, this is the part where you say, "You're not my daddy, f out my face." Oops, that's the type of stepchild I was. That was pretty bad though. My stepfather could be like, "Your mother wants you to wash the dishes." And I'd be like, "You're not my daddy." Anyway, I want to mention that her stepfather's name is Adam. And at one point he talks to her about snakes. I found that extra interesting because her name is Lily, which could be a short nickname for Lilith. Anyways, the girls get together and they see that their power has increased. So they start casting spells. Woke AF spells. For example, they cast a spell on the class a-hole who happens to have a poster of Lil Xan on his wall. And I did have to ask my younger sister if that was Little Pump or Little Xan. All I know is that one of them was online crying about finding out that their dad was a crackhead. I could not tell you what he sings because I'm old. Anyways, they cast a spell on him to make him less of an a-hole. He later comes back talking about heteronormativity and saying that his playlist now features an eclectic array of music. He even starts playing Princess Nokia. During the party scene, they did play Natalie Rose's Squad, which I really like. Plus, I wanted that Adidas set that she wore in the music video, but it was sold out for the longest time. I wonder if it's available now. Of course, that was like back in 2015. Speaking of 2015, this movie feels very 2015. And I'm wondering if this is what millennials think Gen Z is like. I find that amusing because millennials swear that they will never be old and out of touch. Yet, apparently some of them are already out of touch. I think when adults write movies about teens, they should literally have teen consultants. The dialogue in this was fun, even if it was expositional a lot of the time. I was entertained by the characters. However, an hour in, they still had only cast one spell. Only then, finally someone cast a second spell. And that's when things start to go wrong. In the original craft, a lot more happened by the 1 hour point in the movie. A girl's hair fell out, they ran over a guy with a car. Plus, it was very clear what each character had to overcome. Racism, medical issues, poverty, depression. I kind of feel like this movie wanted bonus points for being inclusive without actually being inclusive. Yes, you have a black character, and a trans character, and a bi character, and a plus-size character. But you don't give them any background story or character development. They seem to be there just so you can check off a box. Except for the main character, Lily. This is a very Lily-centric movie. I wish a little more happened in the first hour. That said, I did not hate how this movie wrapped up. I feel like the payoff was just barely worth the build-up. I think you'll enjoy this movie if you know the true history of witches more so than the Hollywood portrayal of witches. Also, if you know the mythology behind Lilith/Ishtar, which is actually pronounced Easter. This will also be interesting for you if you're familiar with internet culture. One character deadass makes comments that could be read as incel rhetoric. This had some laugh out loud moments, at least for me. I really liked the 4 friends. They were fun, energetic, and really likable. There's also some moments that may have been funny only to me. For example, at one point, a character says, "We can do this the easy way or the hard way." And I don't know about you, but I cannot hear that phrase without thinking about the Booty Warrior. This was better than I expected. I do wonder how Gen Z viewers will feel about it. Or if they feel a millennial director captured their teen culture accurately. I think this made a pretty good double feature with The Witch Files. And both movies showed love for the craft in creative ways while telling their own new stories. Were you a fan of the original craft? Have you seen The Witch Files? Have you seen The Craft Legacy? What did you think? Let me know in the comments. I just watched XX, and I have to say one of the first things I noticed that I really liked about it was the stop motion intro that turned into a wraparound. I thought that was very well done. What I'm going to do is talk about each of the segments individually rather than the film as a whole at first. The first story is called The Box, and if you saw the trailer, you saw that there's a scene with a family that's on a subway train and a gentleman sitting there with a gift box, and the little boy asks to see what's in the box. And the gentleman obliges him, and then some odd things happen thereafter. This story was actually pretty engaging. I liked the direction that it was going in, but it really didn't have any closure to it. The acting was pretty good, the direction was pretty good. I just felt the story just was left unfinished. I felt unsatisfied by that. There was one pet peeve I had, and that's when the daughter banged her fork on the plate to indicate that she wanted more food. I thought that was so rude. My mother would never. No. 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 I'm sorry. Ever since I seen Get Out, that's gonna be a running thing with me. I also wondered if naming the little boy Danny in this particular segment was an homage to The Shining. It could have been. There was some really good practical effects used in this segment, especially at a dinner scene, but overall it was C+, I would say. The second segment is called The Birthday Party, and I don't know which bugged me more, the bad acting or the worst wigs. This segment was just, I really hate to speak badly of short films, especially if it's from an independent director. I really want to give all the credit in the world, but this one, I'm trying to find something positive to say about it. The color scheme was lovely, and the costume designer worked their ass off, but I really didn't get the whole bad wig thing. There was several characters with bad wigs. Even one character was a guy, and he had a bad wig on. I didn't understand the purpose of that, other than just to be distracting, but you know your story is lackluster when I'm paying more attention to what's on your characters' heads than what your characters are actually doing. I hate to say it, but this story just was whack. The third segment was called Don't Fall. I think out of all 4 segments, this is my favorite segment. It's about 4 people, and they go hiding in a place that may or may not be off limits to the public, and they either desecrate or disturb something there, and some other stuff happens. Even though the characters were a little bit aggravating, I liked the direction of this. I liked the practical effects. It really reminded me of an episode of Masters of Horror. I started to say Tales from the Crypt, but no, it's more of a Masters of Horror. It almost reminded me of an episode that would have came right in between Dear Woman and Jennifer. It really had that Masters of Horror feel to it. I actually watched this movie during the daytime, so it was only slightly creepy, but I know had I seen this segment at night, it would have been way creepier. It probably would have kept me up. It was a pretty good segment. The last segment was called Her Only Living Son. The story was semi-interesting, but it's been done to death. It's been done so many times. It's no longer interesting unless you're going to put a new twist on it. It just wasn't interesting. The only thing that stood out to me about that whole segment was that the mom, Cora, something about her kind of reminded me of the mother from the Babadook. I can't put my finger on what that something is, but something about her reminded me of that. Maybe it was her reaction to impending doom, or her sense of impending doom. That's the closest thing I can think of to why she reminded me of the mother from the Babadook. As I said in the beginning, the stop motion wraparound story was really, really cute. I liked it, but this whole thing was kind of lackluster. I feel like it being all female directors was more of a gimmick than anything else, because this really wasn't that great of an anthology. I hate to say it, but I have really high standards for anthology series anyway. I mean, VHS I only halfway liked, ABC's of Death halfway liked. I feel like, not even halfway, I feel like every time I see one of these anthology series in current years, it's always been about a 25% positive for me. 25% of the short films are really, really good, and the rest are just, why are you here? You're just filler. And I feel like that's what makes them not so good, because there isn't an even level for the stories. Another issue with a lot of these is that the short stories they tell don't have good payoffs, and when you put them together as an anthology, there's a really inconsistent quality amongst the story. And one of my favorite anthologies, well, not one of my absolute favorite anthology, has been Creepshow. Although I know that's not a fair comparison, because with Creepshow, every segment was written by Stephen King and they were all directed by George A. Romero. So it's a little bit different, and that's why there's a consistency there, because you have the same director and the same writer. But I don't see why these newer anthologies couldn't take just the level of sophistication from Creepshow and make sure that there's a consistent level with these stories. Like, why do you have an excellent story, then a crappy story, then an excellent story, then a crappy story, then an excellent story, then a so-so story, then a boring story. Like, there's got to be some level, some measure of quality, and then you'll have a really good anthology series. If you have some level of quality amongst all of your short stories or your short films, then you make a really good anthology. I don't think that's impossible. Even with multiple directors, I don't think that's impossible. Anyways, I was really disappointed with XX. I was excited about it when I saw the trailer. The trailer made it look really, really good, but then watching it was a real letdown, unfortunately. It wasn't absolutely horrible, but it wasn't good either. It's been a minute since we did some cyber horror. I've actually been slacking on my tech cyber horror, which is one of my favorite genres. Netflix released an original about 2 years ago called Cam, and then just recently Shudder released an original called Host, and they both have to do with live streaming. Two different forms of live streaming, but live streaming all the same. That's why I pair them together. Let's start with Cam. Cam is a Netflix original, which is about a girl named Alice, who is a live stream cam girl who finds out one day that she has been replaced by some type of doppelganger or replica of herself. The movie opens up with Alice hosting her cam girl show. She's interacting with her audience much in the same way that many live streamers on YouTube or Twitch interact with their audience. They're sending her tokens, which is kind of like this movie's form of super chats. During her live stream, she does something super unexpected, which I won't tell you about because I was surprised by it. I want you to be surprised by it. I liked it a lot. Also, it was interesting to see her do this from the perspective of the cam girl. The actress in this has eyes that remind me of Emma from Spooky Astronaut's channel. If you haven't seen her channel on YouTube, follow her. She's pretty cool. But this actress has similar eyes to Emma's. There's so much to relate to, at least for me, in this movie. Like, for example, when she's watching the other cam girls' shows, and some of them are doing really interesting, entertaining, well thought out things, and then another one is just sitting there looking at the camera, not really doing much, but the one not doing much is number one. I see that a lot on YouTube. I see some YouTubers that really make these amazingly thought out, well edited videos. They usually hover around 20,000 to 50,000 subscribers, and their content is so good. And then there's other people that they barely do anything and they have like 250,000 subscribers. And I'm like, how do you have 250,000 and this other person who's basically producing documentaries every week only has 20 to 50,000 subscribers? It's wild. You just never know what people are gonna latch on to. Then on top of it, they have to deal with copyright strikes. That's where some of my favorite YouTubers have to deal with getting copyright strikes when they're not even doing anything wrong under fair use terms. But these big companies don't give a damn about fair use. One more gripe before I finish my rant. There's also you have those people, like I just described, that do excellent videos. They are well researched, they're well thought out, well scripted, really great editing, everything put together beautifully. Not a lot of traction. Other people just sit down and just say a whole bunch of crap, give out faulty or false information, get things wrong, act like they're watching something that you can clearly tell they did not watch it. They're just talking about it as if they did watch it, but they didn't really watch it. Bonus points if they're yelling, screaming, and making a spectacle of themselves and bugging their eyes and all that. I'm going to call it YouTube coonery because it's like an amplification of what a human being actually acts like. But not quite the level of clownery, if that means anything. Anyways, I'm off on a tangent. There was a moment in this film that kind of addressed those type of issues. When you think about it, it's really just a commentary on society and how we're getting closer and closer to ouch my balls. Like, if you've ever seen the movie Idiocracy, that was the #1 program in America, was called Ouch My Balls, in this futuristic world created by Matt Judge. We're already halfway there. I mean, if you look at Failblog. Another thing that this movie addressed was the pressure to be online a lot. I would say about 6 years ago, it was enough for a YouTuber to produce a video once a week. Maybe twice if you're really, really productive. I think that was the norm because most YouTubers did it as a hobby and they had full-time jobs. More recently, we've seen a proliferation of professional YouTubers who are able to produce more content more frequently because they're doing it full-time. The person who used to be a great example of this is DJ Academics. There were times where he would produce 6 to 8 videos a day. Or at least that was before Everyday Struggle and before he became Tekashi 69 personal PR. Okay, no more tangents, I promise. But back to the matter at hand. I love the premise of this movie. It's listed as mystery, horror, thriller, but it's also very much science fiction, especially since the threat in this is not supernatural or psychological, it's technological. There are lots of Alice in Wonderland references. I can't even begin to dissect that for you because, as y'all know, I am not super familiar with Disney cartoons. Although I'm sure that was a story, like in a storybook before Disney, but I'm not super familiar with Alice in Wonderland, so I can't dissect it. I'm sure there is a video on YouTube dissecting all the different things from Alice in Wonderland that connect to plot elements in Cam. There are some timeline issues. I don't know whether they are meant to be there or they just sort of happened. I did see online that there are theories that the story may not be told chronologically. I'm not sure I completely agree with that. It kind of made me feel like they just made a mistake with some of the dates. For example, at one point, Alice is looking up information on another girl about the date of her death. One article she looks at lists the date of the young lady's death as 2014. She scrolls down and in the same shot, the girl's death is listed as 2015. I don't know whether that is meant to be a clue or whether it was generally just an editing mistake. So the dates just might be arbitrary. The meat and the potatoes of this has to deal with algorithms, and that's all I'll say about that. I really can't say more without spoiling it. I liked how this movie ended. I actually ended up watching it twice. And I still flinch when a certain thing happens in the movie. Even though I know it's going to happen, it still affected me. It speaks to a person's motivation for being a cam girl, a Twitch streamer, a YouTube content creator, or an Instagram influencer. Let's talk technical specs. This movie looks pretty good. I like the camera work, the lighting, etc. The acting is great. I really enjoy the soundtrack as well. It has a title track song called Galaxy by Missy Modell, and when you listen to it, it sounds exactly like All Around the World, La 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 by ATC. I would put the music in this for comparison, but I don't want to get dinged for copyright. Suffice it to say, I really enjoyed this. For me, the Netflix movies are getting better and better, because if you've seen my other reviews, starting with The Open House, which was trash, The Apostle, which... there was another one. The Ritual, that was okay. It wasn't great. But out of those, so far, Cam has been the best. Hopefully, they'll continue to get better. I'll be right back and we'll talk about Shudder and their original movie, Host. Tell me why I hear Zapp and Roger computer love in my head right now. Let's get into Host. This is a great little movie. Little because it's a great length for this format. It was a smart choice to make this film only 56 minutes long because it didn't drag and it got right to the point. It didn't really have any character development, but for some reason I didn't mind. We had all the information we needed because this was kind of like stumbling onto a cool ghost video on YouTube at like 3 in the morning. I actually watched this at 2:50 in the morning because I'm that stupid person in horror movies. Speaking of how you watch this, I think there is a best way to watch this. I almost started to watch this on a big screen in the living room, and that would have been a mistake. I think that would have taken away from the format of this movie. I've watched and reviewed The Den, Searching, Open Windows, Unfriended, 1 and 2, and Friend Request, so I'm pretty much an expert on the video chat subgenre of found footage horror movies. Some of the movies I just listed, I watched on my laptop with headphones on. And in my opinion, I feel like that's the best way to watch these movies. Watching these at the movie theater on your TV takes away from the experience. And I actually feel bad for people who watched Friend Requests in the movie theater. That would have completely taken me out of the moment. I'm glad I watched it on my laptop because it felt like I was really watching something on my laptop. Because I was watching something on my laptop. But like I said, watching these on a laptop, tablet, even your phone, with headphones makes for a more immersive experience. It makes you feel like you're on that Zoom call. I must acknowledge that there may be a generational divide with regards to these types of movies. It's my opinion that maybe teenagers might enjoy these more so than older people because they're the people that are going to be most likely to watch a movie on their laptop. I know 14-year-old me would have loved The Host had I seen it back in the day, because it's the type of scary that It gives you a little bit of a jolt, but it's not so scary that you can't sleep at night or that you can't watch it by yourself. It's that middle range scary where it's not like, not completely unscary or uncreepy, but it's not, oh, this is going to creep me out for days either. It's just right in the middle. It's creepy while you're watching it, but if you had to get up and walk to the bathroom in the dark, you could do it. Don't you just love it when I get a 2 for 2? Both movies are pretty good movies. I mean, they're not amazing, awesome, excellent movies. They're just all right. But that's okay. It's okay to have an all right movie. I enjoyed both of them well enough. Have you seen Cam or Host? Which streaming service did a better job with their original programming? Netflix or Shudder, in your opinion? Do you like video chat movies? That's what I'm going to call them now. I'm going to call them video chat movies. A subgenre of found footage. And I don't know if that's correct, but that's what I'm calling it. Have you seen either of these movies? Do you like video chat format? Do you think Netflix or Shudder are doing a better job with their original content? Let me know in the comments. Since I'm on this 1989-90 kick, I might as well continue and get another use out of this outfit before the day is gone. Do you remember Mirror Mirror? I remember this from back in the 90s when it was just something that you would catch on cable, or for some reason in my mind, I keep picturing it next to Witchboard at the video store, even though usually the videos are in alphabetical order. For some reason, those two movies go together in my head. I just remember the first time I saw the trailer for Wish Upon, it reminded me of Mirror Mirror, which is why I paired these two movies together. In this movie, a teenage girl receives black magic power through an antique mirror that drips blood, not realizing that the mirror is controlled by demonic forces. The cursed mirror grants the teenage girl several wishes, and this mirror is the OG creepy mirror, decades before Oculus. We meet Megan and her mother Susan moving into their new home. Susan is played by Karen Black, and Megan is played by an actress named Rainbow Harvest. That is a really cool name. They're moving into a new home after the death of Megan's father, Susan's husband, and the mirror is already there when they move in. One of my favorite scenes in this movie is when she goes to her new school for her first day. It was very realistic to anyone that's ever been a new kid in school before. The way the girls walked by and looked her up and down and then giggled amongst themselves, very realistic. Been there, especially if you don't look like everyone else. I like Megan's look. It reminds me of Lydia Dietz from Beetlejuice. There's another scene where the girls are picking teams in gym class, and just the look on her face and how we as the audience are sitting there with her waiting for her not only to be picked last, but to not be picked at all. So much so that the gym teacher just has to assign her to a team. That's why it's better just to have the kids count off 1 and 2, and all the 1s go on one team and all the 2s go on another team. It's a better, more equitable way to do things. I once worked at a school where they determined the prom king and queen with balloons. As the students entered the prom, they were each given a balloon, and at a certain time of the night, they popped their balloon, and if inside of the balloon there was a little piece of paper about the size of a fortune from a fortune cookie, said king or queen, that's who was the king or the queen. It completely eliminated the whole popularity contest thing out of it. I really like that idea. Shout out to Eli Whitney Tech. Hopefully you guys still do things that way. I thought that was really cool. Anyway, this movie gets 90s high school very right. Even the disses. When that one girl walked by her and looked at her and said, oh, I guess there was a sale at Kmart. That was a thing people actually used to say. Because they set her character up that way, I was rooting for Megan until she let the power go to her head. And maybe I still rooted for her a little bit then too. Because it was just interesting to see the ish she was doing to people. Then the mirror took over and things got way more gruesome. There's a really nasty garbage disposal fatality. There were a couple good jump scares that were very effective because I didn't expect them. We even get a couple point of view shots from the mirror's perspective. The effects in this movie are solid. They are practical effects, my favorite. Let's take a moment to appreciate these 90s clothes. Look at these. Don't you just love it? Megan starts making wishes, and of course those wishes don't go so well. There are parts of this that remind you of The Craft. And don't worry, I'm going to review The Craft. There's also a little bit that reminds you of Prince of Darkness. The soundtrack is great. There's a scene with flies buzzing around. And if you have surround sound, the sound of the flies comes out of the back speakers behind you. Since I watched this on Tubi, visually this was formatted for, those square TVs or the old VHS formatting. What I mean to say is that it's not a widescreen edition. And I found that okay. It was kind of nostalgic. Like I said, at the time of this recording, this movie was available on the Tubi app on Roku. This is a 90s nostalgic classic for me. I put in the same category as Warlock and Witchboard and Wishmaster too. Don't worry, I'll get to those. They were all great movies to watch as a teen, especially by myself. I was grown when Wishmaster came out, but the other three, I was still a young teenager when those came out. And it was good to have those type of movies that you could watch by yourself and not feel too scared about. I call them bridge movies. It's a level above Goosebumps, but it's not quite like scary to death. I recommend it if you want to watch something very 90s, that's not too heavy, kind of fun, which during this point in time, I think you should probably watch something fun. It's way too stressful out here right now. I found out that there is a director's cut available for free to watch on Amazon Prime, so I'm going to go check that out, and I'm going to come back in a minute and tell you more about it. They may say that this is not a remake of Mirror Mirror, but I beg to differ. This even starts with the main character looking in a mirror, and although she's not goth, she predominantly wears black and gray throughout this whole movie. Also, she's lost a parent, and in this case, it's her mother. The thing about this movie is that the main character is aggravating from the start. Her father is dumpster diving across the street from her school, and no one would have ever taken notice of him if she didn't run over there and make a big scene about it. Oh, I guess I should explain what dumpster diving is. Dumpster diving is the practice of people going into dumpsters to find anything that's of use. It used to be a popular thing to do in New Haven at the end of the college school year around Yale, because a lot of the Yale students, they would throw away brand new stuff. They would throw away laptops that were like a year old. It was so popular that it actually became an event. Like at the end of the year, when the Yale students are moving out, it was like the townies in New Haven were all just kind of, you don't even have to go into a dumpster. You just can go outside the dormitories and they're throwing out their TVs and DVD players and stuff like that. But like I said, no one would have ever noticed her father doing that if she didn't run across the street and make a big deal out of it. She could have walked right into the school and pretended like she didn't even know that dude. That's how her dad gets her the titular wish box. So she lives in a house with just her father, a dog, in the wish box, or the object that's going to grant wishes that will eventually go wrong. In both movies, a dog does not like the object. In both movies, unfortunately, a dog is harmed. But that's a very general horror movie trope. Now, in this movie, with the high school bullying scenes, they're so unrealistic. This movie wants us to believe that a bully would just stand there and wait for you to read something off your phone to them. Then they proceed to have the slowest fight ever. Like, I'm pretty sure there's nursing home fights on YouTube that are faster than what these two girls were doing. There was some accurate current day bullying, like when they had the hashtag dumpster daddy on this movie's Instagram. That was kind of funny. I mean, it's wrong, but it was kind of funny. There's also a funny sight gag of her bullies waking up after a slumber party, and one of her bullies, he's waking up halfway out of the closet, and I thought that was a little bit of a social commentary about him. Anyway, our main character, Claire, starts making wishes. And of course, they go from good to bad. Things go awry. And what's that? A garbage disposal fatality. Where have I seen that before? But this movie definitely is not a remake. 1 similarity is arbitrary. 2 is a coincidence. 3 is a pattern. And 4 is you copied Mirror Mirror. All jokes aside, truthfully, both movies are new takes on the monkey's paw story. There's also a part in this that reminds me of The Craft as well. It's has a similar theme of wishing someone to be in love with you, but instead they just become extremely obsessed and dangerous. I'm not mad because this movie is still dumb fun. But to tell the truth, you ever watch a movie that you know is bad, but you don't care because you're still having fun watching it? At no point in this did I ever root for Claire. At the beginning of Mirror Mirror, I kind of rooted for Megan until she did a heel turn. But in this, Claire has always been aggravating to me, so at no point was I ever rooting for her. Even when her bullies were being jerks to her, they were only slightly more jerky than she was. Really, most of the people in this movie were jerks, except for her dad. I mean, he didn't do anything too terrible besides just find that box, and he didn't mean to do anything terrible with that. And Buddy with the skateboard, he was actually a true friend to her. I kind of like her friends. They had charisma for days. I swear, I think my favorite line in a movie is when her one friend was like, "Go fund this," and then flips the bird. I really quite like the mythology behind the wish box. That story is solid, and I could see sequels being made with this. Because the story is based around an object, you can have sequels with different types of characters. You can have sequels with adults. You could have sequels with more teens. You could have sequels in different countries. You can go anywhere with this, really. I know the different country thing might sound odd, but there's, out of the Paranormal Activity sequels, there's kind of an unofficial sequel called Paranormal Activity Tokyo Nights, which was pretty good. Well, at least in my opinion. But you have to like Paranormal Activity movies to begin with, and some people just don't like them, and that's okay. But my point is the story could continue with whomever next receives that wish box. I also really like the design of the wish box. I would love to have a replica of the wish box for my collection of horror movie memorabilia. I also want that big red Wishmaster stone. It's really hard to find that. Like, all the stones I found online are either like this big or they're like that big, huge. But the Wishmaster stone is like this big, and I just want a replica of the Wishmaster stone. Speaking of Wishmaster, the ending of this kind of reminds you of that. Or at least the reveal at the end reminds you of a situation that presented itself in Wishmaster. See how when you try to talk about something without spoiling the movie, you're trying to say what you're trying to say in a vague way, but so that some people understand what you're saying. You understand me? I really love the ending of this movie because I didn't expect it, and it was ballsy. Keep watching through the credits because there is a mid-credit scene, and I dug it. One more thing I have to mention is the soundtrack. I really like the songs played in this movie. They were nice, and they sounded like they were specifically written for this movie, which is rare. I should say which is rare nowadays. They did it all the time in the 80s and 90s, but for some reason they just kind of stopped doing it, and it was cool to see them do that again. And since that's the end of my notes, that's the end of this review. Have you seen Mirror Mirror and Wish Upon? Did one remind you of the other? Do you like bridge movies that aren't too scary, but they aren't too serious? They're just kind of right in the middle there, but they're still a lot of fun? Let me know in the comments. And remember, like I always say, watch it for yourself. Just because I love something doesn't mean you won't hate it. And just because I hate something doesn't mean you won't love it. Until next time. Special thank you to my patrons. If you are new here, welcome to my channel. Feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Reminder to new and returning Latchkey kids, don't forget to follow me on your preferred social media platform and check the community tab on YouTube for some fun extras. By the way, here are some other videos you might like.